evening, America. Tonight, we have a special report. This report is of a man who went through much of his life not knowing who he was. Throughout this evening, we will be exploring the man, Siddhartha. Joining me tonight are the reporters Jason Momeyer and Victoria Sanchez. This is Rona Nelson.
Siddhartha is born as the son of an honored Brahmin and is very respected himself. The teachings and traditions of their religion and culture are passed down to him through these wise priests, but this ultimately leaves Siddhartha unfulfilled because he feels like he could be learning more. Together with his friend Govinda, they leave the Brahmins in order to become samanas, wandering ascetics that practice extreme self-denial in order to leave the perspective of one's body. Still underwhelmed by these ascetics, the friends go seek out Gautama, the exalted one. They can possibly learn from his teachings. While Govinda is convinced by his teachings, Siddhartha has a realization that he can't learn from someone else's experiences. Thus, he goes out on his own. Siddhartha ends up at a wealthy town, trying to learn how to appreciate things for how they are, and integrates into their way of life eventually. However, after being surrounded by love, wealth, and greed for so long, he realizes that he has lost his way and leaves it all behind once again.
Part 2, Siddhartha is overcome by his continual failure. He is about to drown himself in the river that once took him to his life built around Kamala. When he remembers the sacred Om and stops, he repeats the Om until he falls asleep. When he wakes up, Govinda is next to him, making sure he is not harmed by the snakes in the forest. Govinda continues on his way to meet with fellow monks soon after Siddhartha wakes up. Siddhartha then continues over the river where he comes across the ferryman once again. He asks and receives permission to stay with Vasudeva and learn from the river. He comes to find peace in this life and is met with Kamala on her deathbed near the river. She was on her way to visit Gautama before he died to receive some of his wisdom with her son. As she dies, she explains that the boy is actually their shared son. She dies and Siddhartha remains at peace with his life. Their son stays with the two men until he is so unhappy that he runs away. This disheartens Siddhartha, but Vasudeva and the river eventually help him find peace once again. Vasudeva dies after a final bestowing of knowledge. Govinda comes later to gain satisfaction that did not come to him through the teachings of Gautama. Siddhartha explains the importance of self-experience and the continuity of life to Gautama.
The message of this story is that each person needs to find their purpose in life while realizing the purposes of others are also valid. Siddhartha figures this out throughout his journey, which starts with learning to listen to his inner voice as a samana. He loses that voice once he becomes wealthy. However, his voice comes back faintly when he is in the river to remind him of the Om. During the later years of Siddhartha's life, he lives with Vasudeva, the ferryman, and learns the importance of listening and ultimately finds his own purpose.
Parallel structure is a literary feature used throughout the book, expressing troubles through either thoughts or dialogue. In one instance, through Siddhartha's thoughts after he first leaves the town and goes to the river, it is shown that Siddhartha is deeply troubled by his view of himself. It shows this repeating sentence structure, quote, "If there only was a lightning bolt to strike him dead, if there only was a tiger to devour him, if there only was a wine, a poison which would numb his senses, bring him forgetfulness and sleep, and no awakening from that." This quote demonstrates the lack of control Siddhartha has in the situation, as he has been corrupted for so long, doesn't want to live with this fact. On the other hand, parallel structure is also used when Siddhartha and Govinda are discussing ascetics, and they disagree on the validity of what they are doing. The repetition of sentence structure and phrases here also displays complex and troubling thoughts, as seen when Siddhartha asks, quote, "What is meditation? What is leaving one's body? What is fasting? What is holding one's breath?" Again, this quote shows a lack of control and a lack of knowledge, as he is uncertain about what to do or what to think.
Within the culture and religion of which the Brahmins and Samanas are a part, the cycle refers to many things but also only one. Within the cycle of life, man goes through many cycles within a day, multiple days, weeks, months, or years. Hesse uses this cultural knowledge as the guidance for Siddhartha's journey. One of the cycles discussed is the act of leaving oneself but always returning. During Siddhartha's discussion with Govinda while they were begging in the city, Siddhartha explains this cycle as it is fleeing from the self. It is a short escape of the agony of being a self. It is a short numbing of the senses against the pain and the pointlessness of life. Then he won't feel himself anymore. Then he won't feel the pains of life anymore. Then he finds a short numbing of the senses when he falls asleep over his bowl of rice wine. He'll find the same what Siddhartha and Govinda find when they escape their bodies through long exercises staying in the non-self. Hesse uses the cycle of leaving oneself but returning as a mental block for Siddhartha as he tries to comprehend the meaning of the exercises. The overarching cycle is that of Siddhartha's life and how he has to experience what his father did. When Siddhartha first went to his father to ask permission to go with the Samanas, the Brahmin fell silent and remained silent for so long that the stars in the small window wandered and changed their relative positions ere the silence was broken, expressing the absolute pain with which his father feels. Siddhartha, later in life, when he has a son, is able to experience the pain of having your son leave also. He asks himself, had his father not also suffered the same pain for him, which he now suffered for his son? Had his father not long since died, alone, without having seen his son again? Did he not have to expect the same fate for himself? Was it not a comedy, a strange and stupid matter, this repetition, this running round in a fateful circle? By explicitly labeling the cycle, he has the realization that he has completed the cycle.
Hesse writes in the second excerpt, Siddhartha reached the large river in the forest, the same river over which a long time ago, when he had still been a young man and came from the town of Gautama, a ferryman had conducted him. The river is a recurring symbol in the text and is often referred to around large character developments or realizations. It is often symbolizing rebirth or the continuous flowing of time. In this section, Siddhartha the rich man dies and is reborn as Siddhartha the spiritual man once again. In this excerpt, Hesse also writes, a frightening emptiness was reflected back at him by the water, answering to the terrible emptiness in his soul. This quote refers to the emptiness left behind after Siddhartha has forgotten the ways of his youth. He has forgotten the teachings that once directed his entire lifestyle and traded them for a life of pleasure where he was still unhappy. The river is a way of demonstrating Siddhartha's rebirth into a man on the correct path of salvation. Contrary to all his previous paths, this one is presumed to get him to the correct destination.
This has been a closer look on the life, the thoughts, and the struggles of Siddhartha. I'd like to thank my fellow reporters Ronan Nelson and Victoria Sanchez. This has been Jason Momeyer signing out. Good night, America. Sleep tight.
Wait, can you see my legs?
No!
Figures this out throughout his journey. I hate you. What is wrong with you?
The purpose of life.
The light's not being shown properly. Your thumb is covering part of the light.
Okay, I'm recording this. Okay, so continue.
While Govinda is he's not
Okay, so Siddhartha was begging on his knees in the city, and some random black dude came in with his wine rice, whatever the hell that is. Anyways, he went and slapped some knowledge to that guy's head, and then that guy had too much wine rice, so he, passed all over that rice, probably spilled it, stayed in his already hobo shirt. Yeah, I don't know the rest of the story, because that's all I retained from what my brother said.